This is the number that is silently killing all of the family law firms across the nation, and it is my job to bring it to justice, right? The number one number that I see that hurts people's family law firms is book rate. So I have another video talking all about what it is and how you track it, so I won't go into super detail here, but book rate is the number of new leads that come into your firm and how many of those leads book a consultation or a case evaluation on someone's calendar to get sold, right? It is a really easy number to track. It's a really easy number to fix, but so many people get it wrong. And I'm gonna talk about the tracking reason people get it wrong, and then tactically, like what people say on the phones to blow this number, right? So the first problem in most law firms is that they don't have good data integrity, right? You probably have Lawmatics, or you have Clio, or you have MyCase, you have something like that, right? But you're still putting leads in manually. And you're still putting leads in manually from all of your sources. So think about a law firm, a family law firm that's well established, right? You probably have Google business calls coming in. You probably have local service ads calls coming in. You probably have Google ads calls that are coming in. You have general website calls that are coming in. You have form submissions off of those platforms coming in. You then have Avo, you have Super Lawyers, you have some listings, you have the bar, you have all kinds of places that are sending you leads, right? And not all of these leads are being entered in automatically, which means that whoever is sitting at the desk answering the phones, they have to do it. And that person usually gets really, really busy. And so what happens is, if a lead's not that great, they don't put it into the CRM, right? So what happens here is generally all of the best leads go into this column, and we close a whole bunch of those leads over here in the paid column, and we think that we close at 90%. And so this is the biggest problem that I see time and time again, right, when I talk to my clients, is that we don't put all the leads here, we only put the qualified ones. And because they're only the qualified ones, we have a warped view of our closing process. And that allows us to think that we can start marketing harder. And when we do start marketing harder, all of a sudden things start to break and we don't get the return on investment that we want. And it's because it starts at this initial stage. People don't put all their leads into the system, right? This is like the number one killer of book rate. And so how that looks, right, is you're gonna think that because we put all the qualified leads here and all of them book a consultation at this stage, we have an amazing book rate. But because the front desk person is underwater and they're told don't put solicitors in there, don't put unqualified leads in there, don't even bother wasting your time, we now don't know what's happening with our marketing. And so a lot of people ask me, like, should we put bad leads into the CRM? Absolutely, because let's just say, for example, that we had a marketing campaign that was bringing in a ton of bad leads and we weren't putting them in the CRM, so we weren't tracking them. How are we gonna go fix that? So it's a huge, huge advantage to put every lead in here, because then we can see any trends. If our book rate goes down and all of our leads are going in, it might be because our marketing campaigns aren't doing a good job. And then you yell at your marketing vendor and say, what the heck are you doing? Why are you sending me all this crap, right? That would be a really constructive conversation versus we have no idea what's going on here, right? So that is the first step in killing your book rate, right? Is not putting every lead into this and then not tracking every lead as a booked consultation. So that is one way that people botch their book rate, is they don't put all their leads into their system. So what are some other ways that we mess up book rate, and then how can we fix it, right? Let me put book rate up here. So the first way is we miss phone calls. So a lot of people were just at ClioCon recently, a lot of our clients, and they sent us the screenshot because we talk about this all the time. And so they were just like, hey, yeah, it seems like you guys are onto something with this one. So Clio reported that law firms miss 50% of their phone calls, or there's some staggering stat like that, right? And so if you're missing your phone calls, there's no chance that we're gonna book that person for a consultation. And so that's like the easiest thing to fix. Now, what I generally recommend here is an answering service. And if you're gonna use an answering service, make that process so easy that a caveman can do it, right? If we give the answering service a really complicated script, what's gonna happen is sometimes that person is a rock star and sometimes they're not. Like, that's just the brutal truth of these answering services. I honestly recommend them all the time, but I always recommend them with the caveat that you wanna make sure that the script is so easy. So it's literally like, yeah, what's your practice area or what's your matter type? Are you in our location? Sure, go ahead and book your case evaluation, right? Like, we can't give them much more than that. You can, but they might mess it up, right? And your book rate can go down. So that's the number one, like, star this, circle it, like that's the easiest one to fix. Now the second one is when you get form leads, you don't call these. And so this happens for a few reasons. Number one, it's just that they're not going into your system. So if your website is getting form leads or chat leads or whatever, and we don't have that Zapier connection, we're not getting our leads from our site into our ecosystem, and we can never call them because we don't even know they're there, right? So we want to make sure that we know the form leads are coming in. The second reason is form leads, if you get to them like an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours later, they've already moved on, they forgot they submitted their information, and now they're getting a call from a weird number. So connection rates go down on form leads, which then yields a lower book rate, which we don't like, right? And so form leads are a huge, huge problem if you don't have like an automated text message that goes out, or you don't have somebody calling that lead within 5 minutes. There's actually a study done by MIT, if you go look it up. It says that the contact rate goes down by 900% if you wait longer than 5 minutes. It's insane. And this is why if you ever submit a lead on the biggest personal injury firm in the world, I'm not gonna say their name, I don't wanna get in trouble. If you submit a lead on their website, they call you within a minute. So that's what you're up against, right? Even though you're a family lawyer, but that's the bar. So form leads is another really, really big reason why people have a low book rate. Now, let's just say that we do get on the phone with these people, right? We call our form lead or we do answer our phones. What else happens that really messes this up? So a big, big thing that happens all the time, and it's the first thing I test for when we do our daily sales coaching call with our clients, is people drop the price, right? And this is like a huge no-no. So generally, what people say is all these leads are just shopping around. That's a great thing, right? When you're shopping around, you're generally gonna buy something, and ideally they're gonna buy from you. And so what happens is a potential client will call your firm and they'll say, hey, what's a divorce cost? And the intake person will say, well, it starts at $5,000, or we have an initial retainer of 10 grand, or our hourly rate is $650. All of those things are scary to somebody that is new to this process, and they have no idea what it's supposed to cost. And we haven't built any value at this point. So dropping the price will usually result in a thank you, I'll call you back. All right, so that usually murders book rate. In fact, recently we had a firm that was doing this, and they were closing like 5% on total leads or like 4%. They had a strong salesperson, intake was a little bit weak, and we said just stop dropping the price. All of a sudden their numbers have doubled. Like it was literally that fast. So huge, huge thing here, don't drop the price, right? Now, the next thing is this is a little bit of extra credit, but let's sell this consult, right? Let's sell this case evaluation. This is also going to improve your show rate, which is a different conversation, but sell the meeting. So when they call in and say, hey, I'm looking for a divorced attorney, you say, oh, good news, that's exactly what we do. And then they say, great, right? And then you talk a little bit, you get some information, whatever you do in your intake call, and then you say, look, so I'm pairing you with so-and-so, they're our client services director, they're awesome. All of the new clients come to our firm, talk to them. They have a really good process they're gonna take you through, they're gonna help you understand XYZ, blah, 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 right? You're gonna sell that next person in line, you're gonna sell the meeting, and they're gonna be more inclined to A, book that meeting, and then B, show up for that meeting, right? So that's an easy one. And the number one killer of book rate is, ready? I'm gonna put it over here. Paid consults. This is gonna upset some people, but paid consults murder your book rate. Absolutely murder it, because number one, generally people are so spoiled these days they don't wanna pay for anything. Number two, it's usually delivered really, really quickly right off the bat. Like it's $350 to talk to an attorney or to talk to somebody. And then number three is people can go down the list of Google and see that other people are doing this for free, right? So it kills your book rate. Now I'm gonna put a number behind this because I hate it when people just rattle stuff off. Generally 70% is our KPI for leads, booking an appointment. So if we get 100 leads, we get 70 meetings on the calendar. When you do this, I have seen it be 3%, I've seen it be 10%. On the rare occasion somebody is really good at pitching that consult, I've seen it be around 30 to 40%. But that is like a unicorn, right? And at a 10% closing rate, that means that everybody that books has to show and everybody that shows has to close. Otherwise, more than likely, your marketing won't be that profitable. If you're at 3%, there's no chance you're gonna make money with pay-per-click or local service ads or Facebook ads or any of that stuff, because the cost of acquisition will just be too high. You'll still make like maybe 3x, but it won't be enough to really wake you up, right? You're not gonna be happy about it. So that's the number one killer of book rate. Now, generally, what I see for book rate as far as fixing it is it can be fixed in about a day or two. I know that sounds radical. And And the trend that shows up when your book rate is falling is about 7 days. And so the reason I know this is we do a daily sales call with all of our clients where we track their numbers in a scorecard and we measure their book rate, their show rate, their close rate. So we know, are they at KPI or are they below KPI? And whenever I see book rate fall to, from 70% to like 30%, usually something's wrong. In fact, this just happened with a client recently and their book rate was like 60% consistently. Like we had fixed a couple things. We're like, all right, awesome, you're doing great. And then all of a sudden it jumped down to 30%. And I'm like, all right, this is kind of weird. Let's give this a little bit of time. Let's watch it for a few more days because it hadn't been 7 days yet. And that week rounded out at a 30% book rate. And I brought this to the client's attention. I said, hey, something's going on here. I'm not sure what. It's time to start listening to phone calls. So that's what we did. We started listening to phone calls and the phone calls were being just completely botched, right? The intake person stopped caring at that point. And I was like, all right, this is not good. So I waited a few more days to make sure that it just wasn't like a fluke, like maybe they were having a bad day or two. And that next week, it was like 23%, the book rate. Turns out that person was quitting. They hadn't told their boss yet. And so they just were phoning in all their leads, no pun intended, right? So they just gave up on their leads. And that took the book rate from 60% down to like in the 20s, which murdered their closing rate. And so what we did to fix it is we went to a answering service. We gave that answering service a really simple script, and that book rate literally within 2 days shot back up to 65%. This happened like a week ago, so the numbers are all really fresh in my mind. So again, if book rate is killing your firm, this is how it works. This is how you fix it. Hopefully this was helpful.